In financial negotiations, cultural nuances significantly shape strategies and outcomes. The world's cultures fall into categories like dignity, emphasizing individual rights, face, focusing on social harmony, and honor, valuing reputation. Recognizing these help tailor negotiation tactics. Cultures also differ in their adherence to rules. Tight cultures, often shaped by historical threats, strictly follow norms, while loose cultures are more flexible. This understanding is key in predicting behaviors and adapting negotiation approaches. Trust varies in importance across cultures. In some, it's fundamental to successful negotiations. In others, strategic considerations might dominate. Navigating these challenges requires understanding the underlying cultural dynamics and a commitment to effective communication. Successful global financial negotiations demand cultural intelligence and adaptability, alongside strategic skills. Embracing cultural differences can lead to more meaningful and profitable negotiation outcomes. So in negotiation, we hear about cultural intelligence and adaptability. Cultural differences could mean different countries, but it could just be the divide between a buyer and a seller in the same small town. Brian, you're always trying to make a connection with the potential customer. What role does cultural intelligence play in the psychology of sales and negotiation?
Gosh, this is so tough. And in any instance like this, if I have the opportunity to bring somebody else into this equation who has more experience in dealing with those cultural differences, I will do it every time. And it's this, and even outside of sales, I sit on city council here in my hometown, and I will always bring somebody else in that has more knowledge and experience in those areas to help me if it's something that I'm not 100% confident in what I'm doing.
That's a great tip. Rich, I know that, when you were in the military, you were abroad. Yeah. Has that influenced your approach to understanding cultural differences in negotiation?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the military, right, the military taught me Japanese. I went to language school and learned Japanese and lived in Japan for 5 years. I'm also a Chinese linguist, and I negotiated, right, I guess at fairly high levels in both of those languages. And I also did that in Korea.
Wow.
During like high tensions a few years ago. So I can definitely give my perspective on this, but like one thing I think of with the Chinese that I don't know, I feel like sometimes this may be different in the US, is that if let's say that you're having a big negotiation with the Chinese over a very expensive deal. Well, if you go to dinner and you sit down at dinner and you start talking numbers, I mean, they're going to be offended when maybe in the US that would be expected that you might dive into numbers soon. But I think that the Chinese, and I think that maybe a lot of Asian countries are like this, you might spend the whole night, you might spend several nights drinking, getting drunk together, eating together, talking about families. And then at some point when they're comfortable with you, they're just going to be like, okay, so how are we going to do this? And then you're sort of past that and you've closed the deal. When I think in America, you might spend a lot more time, I don't know, arguing over specifics. So in each case, I think, to the point earlier, if you don't understand the culture yourself, you better have someone that does, especially if there's a lot of money at stake, because it's really important to do things in the culturally correct way for that situation.
Everold, what's your experience? Because you're dealing with many different types of people, many different clients who are coming to you to buy a new car, but you're also an entrepreneur. You have a business which can point back to your Jamaican roots.
Yeah.
Yadi.com, you're selling Jamaican products online.
Yeah.
So cultural, where does the cultural fall into all of this?
Well, I experienced a lot more of it at the dealership. Because we're in a multicultural area just outside of Toronto, so it's very prominent, and we are basically forced to be able to learn how to deal with the different cultures, because there's just no other choice about that. And we're familiar with some cultures when the entire family will come in, and you basically have to negotiate with everybody in the family, and everybody has to have their input, and you have to respect that. You can't, be disrespecting even the younger, child or nephew or niece in the family. So you have to listen to them all. And, we're familiar with the Chinese as well, and the negotiating tactics and styles. But to be honest with you, I think lately we've seen, again, a bit of a shift, especially here in the greater Toronto area, where I think a lot of our clientele are kind of tired of negotiating, and they realize how the real estate market is structured here. So when they come in looking for a car from us, we find that it's not like it was about 5 to 10 years ago, where it was hours of negotiating for $1,000, or the fact that they'd walk for $100 or $500. We find that they're more apt now to listen and to be a little bit more guided. That may change again soon, but that's what we've seen now as a shift.
No, that's really interesting. I think being Chinese American, it's not uncommon for like 3 generations to show up.
Yes.
Because everybody has to try out, the front seat, back seat.
It's like you got to go get more chairs from 2 other offices and bring them in your office so everybody can sit.
It's funny to see the cultural differences. Yeah. All right, let's move on to segment 4.